Hello, hello, everyone. Welcome to another episode of Shrink Chat. I'm Monica Burton.
And I'm Annette Reiter, and we're happy to have you here to talk about some of these pandemic predicaments we're in, like moving from grief to novelty is today's topic, and it's just the two of us again, so this will be our chat.
Welcome to today's show. So the hot topic for today is, again, like Annette just said, we're going to talk about the coronavirus and really this grief to novelty, what we're noticing after, 5 months of this pandemic being around.
Here in the United States, right?
Yeah, the losses that we're still experiencing and the novelty of what we're living in right now.
Yeah, it seems to be one of those big themes across like the lifespan of people that we're seeing in our practices and our friends and in our own lives is that your expectations about whatever was going to come your way in the next few months and maybe even possibly a year or two is drastically changing. And there's a lot of grief in that because everybody had plans and expectations about what was going to happen. And now we're in a new set of stages as we look at whether we're going back to school, the fall's coming, the summer's here. We're noticing that there's this theme that this time, for wherever you are in your life, is uniquely kind of being taken from you the way you thought it was going to be. But it's also showing up in a new way that you have all this space now. And so that's hopefully the opportunity for novelty that could be there. So there's sadness and loss, and there's also like, wow, I'm playing more board games with my family. I'm hanging out and having deeper conversations. You know, you got more time. You don't have all these places to rush to be at anymore. Right.
Yeah, the notion of time is our friend and our enemy. You know, I keep thinking, I think I said this to you earlier, it's July. Like, you know, and it's like people were planning on going on vacations or, you know, getting back to school and the quote unquote normalcy of what our lives used to look like, and now we can't do that. And so it is like kind of embracing the new parts, and at the same time still being upset that we have to do this.
Right. Like, and schools are talking about whether they're going to reopen or not reopen, or we're going to do a
hot topic.
Yeah, the hot topic for folks, particularly for Monica, because she has school-aged children. But so you're living it. You're living that part of this life cycle. I'm not anymore. And I think my daughter's in college, and it's kind of they're looking at a hybrid model. And what she does in college at this age isn't really my business. I'm just happy she's doing it.
Right.
I think it wasn't a reasonable expectation. I'm not trying to put her down. I'm just saying, like, yay, she's in college. She'll figure it out. So, but yes, hybrid models. But I do realize as I say that may sound trite to some people, because I know parents, particularly American parents, are certainly much more involved with their college-age kids and the decisions they're making in school. And a lot of parents are paying a big price tag. I know a big deal here was when Harvard just recently announced that they will be doing all of their programs online. Like that sets the stage for private colleges in America. Like, oh wow, if Harvard's doing that, what are we doing?
Yeah.
And so, you know, and not all the decisions are in. So there's also, I know we did a show on this already, but there's also a healthy bit of limbo happening for a lot of people. Like, not only do I not know what I'm doing, the place where I may be putting my kid doesn't know what they're doing yet.
Right. And, you know, on this life cycle, as you were saying it even makes me think about people who are having babies right now.
Right.
And starting a new life. Like, even that's different. You know, having to be tested for the coronavirus. If you have the coronavirus, you can't necessarily hold your baby right away. Or your husband can't be, or your partner can't be in like the room with you. So even this, like, and to me, that's a significant loss, and also like having to embrace change all at once.
Mm-hmm.
Starting from the very beginning of a new life, and all the way up until like funerals that we can't attend, or a limited number, or some people are waiting to have a celebration of life or a funeral until people can attend. And so it's just this whole like, okay, what's happening in these pockets, whether it's a new life or a funeral. We have school-age children to college-age children.
Mm-hmm. And there's also this phenomenon of this early aging, right? That we're aging out people. So a lot of people that are in their 50s, it's very normal when you're in your 50s to get your first diagnosis of maybe some type of autoimmune disease. You find out you have back problems you didn't know about before, because you've aged now. And now all of a sudden you've jumped into an at-risk category with a health condition in your 50s.
Right.
So you're experiencing a sense of early aging, and you're now considered an at-risk, which is when you say those words to somebody, it's really scary, and it's pretty negative. And a lot of what makes us age well is to be in denial of the fact that we're aging. Mm-hmm. I mean, that's studies that show that, if you believe you're young at heart and you're going to be fine as you age, and you think of yourself as younger, you actually perform better and are happier and feel better. And yet, if you're over 60, you got to go to the grocery store at 8 a.m. on Tuesday and Thursdays now, because they got senior shopping days for you, hours for you sick old people that might die. So, every stage of life has got an experience of this risk, and it's changed your perspective drastically.
Mm-hmm. Right. Mm-hmm.
And
I think in every stage, like what we're noticing, or at least what I'm noticing, is these critical, crucial, big decisions that have to be made. Like the birthing process, or like school age. Let's talk about that, because that is a hot topic. Like, your kids are going back to school, and now you have to make this big decision. Mm-hmm. So how this like slices into different conversations or decisions are, what do we do? How do we make the best decision for our children and keep them safe? And not just on a larger system level, but even in our own families. And, whether you're a single parent, you're a divorced parent, or you're still married, it's like you have to make this big decision and know whatever you decide. Unfortunately, we live in a country where people judge. Mm-hmm. So whatever decision you make, people are going to be mad, people are going to judge, people are going to agree with you. And so it's like there's no choice that's right except for the one that you choose, and just having to stand by it.
Yeah, we've seen it in our practices, and we're hearing from colleagues that the set of parents is arguing about which way to go, and they are, whether married or living in separate households. Mm-hmm. And then I've also seen it that I've got grandparents that are very involved and have very strong opinions. You should not send your kid back to school. Your kid is going crazy at home. They need to get back to school. So we have these multi-generational family systems with a lot. And of course, opinions are even higher than ever, because the stakes feel and are higher than ever, because when it's death.
Yeah.
I mean, if you're thinking hindsight, like you're going, okay, if we're burying this kid, this is what the brain is doing. I'm going to have thought, why did I send them to school? Right. But that's right. So This is what the brain does, right? It tells you, like, you're going to be so mad at yourself if this happens.
Right. Or, hold guilt, or, and the other decision is, if you do send your children back to school, it's like, then are you deciding to not see your, letting your kids see their grandparents? So I think it's this decision impacts on so many levels. In a good world, I'm not going to say perfect because there's no such thing, but in an ideal world, it's like, it would be so nice if we could just support each other, whatever decision we made. but people are being so angry about it or judgmental, and that's the piece that's just like so frustrating. And I guess really the coronavirus in general, whatever decisions you're making, people are judging you in some way.
Yeah, and I think that's all about like fear, right?
Yep.
So just, like we've said so many times, breathe.
Yep.
Breathe in and out. Maybe 3 breaths, maybe 5 breaths, maybe even 10 breaths, and try to get back to more compassion and understanding versus your fear talking, because your fear, fear is judgment and criticism and anger. That's what fear is. But love is, let me face my fear. Let me be supportive. Let me try to understand.
Right.
And it's hard because this is scary stuff. And we've had some of the highest counts in the country here in Florida in the last few days. We've had the highest daily counts. And that is definitely, you can almost taste it in the air here.
Right. And I would say, remember that the decision that you make for your family, you're making for your family, and you're trying to make the best decision for your family. Mm-hmm. And that's all you can do. And so to keep that in mind when a friend or other people make different decisions for their family. Instead of judging, like you just said, try to create space for understanding.
Yeah. And not try to put your fears on them.
Right. Mm-hmm. Right.
Most of the reason we do put our fears on other people is because whatever they're doing is making us have to look at our fears.
Yeah.
Right? So I don't want to look at my fears, so don't do that. Monica, don't send your kids to school because I don't want to face my fear of, I love your boys.
Right. All right.
But, and your boys represent other kids to me, right? So, that I love and care about. And I'm having a sense of out of controlness. Mm-hmm. None of this is true. I'm putting myself in this experience with you and your kids, like as I hope I'm not this judgmental of you. I'm not trying to be.
No, I'm not taking it that way. Like you said, it's just all these things that are out of our control.
Right.
And, as we said in other episodes, remember what's in your control. And even like with these decisions, school-age children, or like we just talked about, understanding loss, to the kindergarten kid that's going to school for the first time in this environment, to the senior that's starting their first, their year. What they thought their senior year was going to look like is now very different. Mm-hmm. And so it's like the novelty of what the heck's happening this year.
Right.
And how do we embrace this change that we didn't really ask for, to the grief about it as well.
Yeah, and what are those unique opportunities of not getting the classic experience of whatever it is? So like I've always said, like there's a freshman, junior, and senior year, and sophomore too, I guess is in there too. I'm sorry, freshman, sophomore, junior, senior year in every experience of your life. Mm-hmm. Some of those years are longer than yours, right? They're your new career in your 20s. So that's your freshman. Your 30s are your sophomore years of your career. Your 40s are your junior years of your career. And then your 50s are your senior years of your career, right? Mm-hmm. So there's those experiences throughout your life. And what's happening for all of us is wherever you are in the freshman, junior, senior year cycle of whatever experience you're in, you're losing it. Whatever you thought it was going to be, whatever you hoped it was going to be, it's probably not going to be that. The pandemic's got a new flavor for you. Mm-hmm. But you're also going to be uniquely the few people on this planet that didn't get your junior experience or your sophomore experience of this. And so you got something different. And that may become quite insightful and quite informative to the rest of your life experience, and maybe even for generations to come after you. Mm-hmm. Like how we're handling this and what this is going to be more than just some type of post-mortem examination. I think it's really telling us about the human experience and what matters. Mm-hmm. And
And we said before, difference not bad, it's just different. But oftentimes we, especially in situations like this where I feel like something's been taken from us, it feels like it should be bad, but it's not. It's just different.
mm-hmm.
You know, and so just kind of keeping that in mind too. Difference not bad, it's just different.
Mm-hmm.
And embracing the difference, I think, helps with the novelty of like, okay, what's this new experience going to bring? Instead of continuing, it's okay to honor and honor your grief, but don't stay stuck in it. You know, because then there's more possibility.
Mm-hmm.
Open the doors to more possibility when you embrace the difference.
And some of the fun ways we've seen this work out with the pandemic, I think, has been dating. I think watching people date, I mean, I'm not dating, so I just am going to be a voyeur of watching people date. But I mean, my husband and I have been enjoying some dates differently than ever before because of this, which it's brought about. But I'm remembering early on in Italy, or maybe it was Spain, there was a young man and a young woman who lived across from each other on balconies, and they started talking. You remember these little videos, and they were dating, and then they ended up dating.
Mm-hmm. Or in New York, the one that sent like a drone message to a woman on the rooftop that he wanted her number or something like that. It's cute.
Yeah. Yeah, and I think people are finding ways to do Zoom dates and get to know each other in different, unique ways. It's an opportunity to be clever and cute, and I've had some couples find each other in the pandemic already, and I think maybe there's been some serious matches out there made.
Well, what I've noticed, I think just the other day I saw a commercial for Match or eHarmony or something. They're now even advertising like video dates instead of, and I was like, oh, okay, people are shifting and changing. But I think one of the good aspects of dating now in this day and age with the pandemic is people actually have to talk and get to know each other and build like just a little bit of trust before they meet each other. Whereas in the pre-coronavirus, it was like swiping left or right and then meeting up and having sex. So it's like, this time people actually have to get to know each other, which, it's good to do that. If you really are wanting a serious relationship, to get to know one another before you decide. And that is trust building is, hey, have we quarantined? Who have we quarantined with? Like, I'm trusting that you're, that we're deciding together to take a little bit of a risk to actually meet up in person.
So I call this a Seinfeld story. If anybody watched Jerry Seinfeld, I'm calling this the sponge-worthy generation of dating. And for those of you who, I'm aging myself here, but back in the 80s, there was a birth control that was a sponge. And women would insert it right before they would have sexual activity, and it worked. It got recalled because it also caused a bunch of other problems. But women loved it. They really did back then because it was easy to use. And this is a bit pre-AIDS epidemic, so people weren't as concerned with other things. So Elaine on Seinfeld stored up a bunch of sponges when it got recalled. She went and bought them from all these stores and had a closet full of these sponges. And she would date people and have to decide if they were sponge-worthy or not. And I think at this point, sponge-worthy has become mask-worthy. So am I going to take off my mask with you? And it's going to be a while before I decide that I'm going to take off my mask with you. So we could maybe meet and sit 10 feet apart, but we're going to have our masks on.
Right.
And so getting to even the first handhold and definitely the first kiss is very delayed for most people during the pandemic.
Mm-hmm.
which is really giving people time to slow down and get to know each other and make
Right.
sure they're sponge worthy.
Right. I like that. But I think that's good too. Like, just being relationship therapists, we understand that people typically get impulsive and they jump into things way too quickly. And so to be able to slow things down, it's like, hey, this is a good thing because you're actually getting to know someone, you're communicating better, you're building those boundaries of trust.
Mm-hmm.
Like, we're going to wear our masks. And if the other person says, no, that's not okay, then that's clear.
Yeah, right. We're not going to date.
Yeah. So, I think this is kind of a good shift in the dating world, where it's like, being impulsive when you first meet someone is not always the best decision. And now you can't really be.
Well, let's take a minute to pause for our sponsors and thank them for sponsoring our show. And please check us out on social media, Facebook, our website, Instagram, and now we have a YouTube channel too.
Lakeview Health is a leading residential addiction treatment center in Jacksonville, Florida, and a proud sponsor of Shrinks Chat. We are a medically supervised facility specializing in gender-responsive treatment and co-occurring mental health disorders. We empower profound recovery every day. So call us at 813-703-8418 or visit lakeviewhealth.com.
Shrinks Chat is proudly sponsored by St. Petersburg Therapy, providing counseling for individuals, couples, and groups for over 20 years. Now offering the convenience of telemed, online meeting for your health and safety. For more information, visit online at stpetersburgtherapy.com.
Monica Burton is a licensed marriage and family therapist based in St. Petersburg, Florida, with over 17 years of experience. Monica offers individual, family, and couples therapy, and during this time of COVID-19 is offering teletherapy. Monica invites you to check out her YouTube channel, where she offers great tips and advice on relationships, parenting, family health, resolving conflict, and coping with stress. Go to YouTube to find Monica Burton LMFT. There are new segments every Thursday. Or check out Monica's website at monicaburtonlmft.com.
What if you could train your brain to think healthier thoughts? Cope Notes uses daily text messages to help you do exactly that. All you need is a cell phone and a brain. To learn more and try it for yourself, visit www.copenotes.com.
All right, welcome back to Shrinks Chat. We're so happy to have you here talking about moving from the feelings and experiences of grief to novelty and trying to figure out how to have opportunities while simultaneously honoring our losses and the changes that are inevitable of this stage of the pandemic.
Mm-hmm. And we've talked about, school age children and making these tough decisions, to the dating world and how to embrace the difference as kind of a good thing. It's not necessarily bad, it's just different. And you just use the word opportunities, looking for the new opportunities that are presenting themselves instead of continuing on this cycle of everything's out of our control. Why haven't we gotten back to our old life yet? And now it's July and we're looking at the fall and Christmas, and so it's like, oh gosh, this isn't going away.
Mm-hmm. Right. There's some studies in. I'll publish this article along with our stuff if you go to all of our social media when this show is running that week. But there's some studies that show that if you're thinking about that this sucks and this is terrible and this is horrible, it will even more than suck and be terrible than horrible than for people that are thinking like, okay, we can do this, we got this, and maybe there's something good that can come from this. So having a wee bit different approach to how you're trying to tell the story in your head about current day events.
Right.
And, trying to pre-mortem something in a good way. There's a research, I think is Gary Stein something. Anyways, I'll try to find him and put that up properly for the show too. He coined the term pre-mortem, but it wasn't about looking towards the negative, but it was about looking towards the opportunities. So like if you would think about how something might be lost, then you might be able to like figure out whether it would be bad, first of all, even if it were lost, and second of all, what steps could you take to derail that a bit and change it. So he would pre-mortem things. And a lot of researchers believe that's how you solve big problems, is to pre-mortem them. So think about, okay, worst case scenario, but not to be negative, but to then prepare for, and then you can make changes. So if you are going to do negative thinking, if you can do it in that pre-mortem idea, I think it helps you be more positive about creating a space for opportunities to exist.
Is that kind of like plan for the worst and hope for the best?
Right. Yeah. So like the worst case scenario is my friend hasn't been calling me because they hate me now. Well, okay, what if that's true? Well, there's parts of this relationship I don't really like anyways, right? Like, so maybe it wouldn't be the worst thing if we're not friends, or, you might start thinking that through that way. So you're pre-morteming that the relationship is over. Or you pre-mortem it and you start thinking, well, maybe there's something I could do. Maybe I did say something that was kind of offensive. Maybe it's worthy that I reach out and apologize because they're of value to me. So then I go vulnerable and I make steps and do that. And then it turns out they're like, oh no, I was in a bad mood about XYZ, right? So you create a different opportunity for something else to show up. So the pre-mortem exercise isn't just to be doom and gloom. It's to like actually like create a bit more of a scientific approach to like, how could you stop that inevitability, that death, mortem, and to kind of think it through differently. So,
well, yeah, looking at, instead of just making an assumption, you kind of jump into what you think is happening. Like Brene Brown says, what's the story I'm telling myself?
Yes.
Right. And then kind of look at that and deconstruct or dissect. And then the other thing that you said, Annette, that was really important is what's your part in it, not what is the other person doing.
Yes. Yeah. Looking towards oneself to make changes in your world rather than looking towards other or outside to make changes in your world. Right. You will be stuck in everything when you're looking for the world to change for you.
Right.
And by the world, I mean people or the events or whatever. But when you look to how can I change? So a pre-mortem approach is the concept of, rather than just going, oh, it's all going to suck, and then just resigning to yourself that it's all going to suck. It's like actually taking an active stage of killing it, thinking about it sucking, and then like, what could I do differently right now? Like then backtrack down the railroad back to me today. Right. So in a week, this is going to be horrible. But what can I do Monday?
Right.
What can I do Tuesday? What can I do Wednesday to make it not so horrible? And then maybe now, because I pre-mortemed it and I actually, rather than just automatically ruminated into a negative place in my head and then just stayed there, and then that outcome showed up. Surprise, surprise.
Well, I think too, like even doing that with the coronavirus, and it continues to go back to what's in my control here. We would like to say the coronavirus is going to go away, but we can't control that. And what we're finding is that it's not. And I think that's the part. It's like, this isn't, after 5 months in the U.S., this is not going to go away. And so it's like, we have to kind of sit with that for a minute.
So another phase of this is our senior population. Those people in their 60s, 70s, and 80s, for them, there are more days behind them there were ahead of them, no matter what, before the coronavirus showed up. And now they have been prematurely grayed. And they're a little resistant to this, as you can only guess. They're feeling, an author wrote it in an article, Catherine Ellison, and I think we're going to have her in a guest on our show later on in a couple of weeks or so. But she wrote about how there's this sudden downward pressure. They're feeling this, we're going down. And, now 60 is the new 65, rather than 60 used to be the new 50. They're feeling like it's moving the opposite direction. They have to be very careful about their health. They're being prematurely retired because they're not going to go back in the office. And so they're being offered retirement packages, which sounds like for some people exciting, but if you weren't planning on retiring at 62, you thought you were going to work till 68. And also the opportunities of retirement aren't that exciting anymore. You're not traveling, you're not going to volunteer overseas. They're very isolating. And maybe they didn't learn all this technology. So the things that make this world easy, the pandemic world easy, is understanding how to do Zoom meetings and knowing how to reach out through people. If you're looking for a job, if you've been prematurely retired or your job has gone away and you're over 55, you're probably having to become an expert in digital communication, or, and polish up your LinkedIn resume, which you never planned on ever having a LinkedIn resume because you thought you're going to work for the next 10 years at this lovely job that's been super secure for you.
Right.
So all sorts of, so AARP has been coming out with articles about this, and, the unique opportunities and novel ways of learning this. And people are talking about this, and I'm seeing it in my practice. You and I were talking about a group of therapists that are, over 60 that are now looking at that they will possibly retire in their practices during doing only telehealth, which as much as we're getting better at it and we all are liking doing it now, it's still a loss. Like, they really thought they were going to be in that building, in that office that they've been in for the last 10 or 20 years, seeing their clients there till the end.
Right. Right.
So
looking at aging and retirement in a different way, and some of it is not what anyone had planned for. So this resistance of, well, wait a minute, I'm not ready to start this phase of my life, this ending life cycle. It's not time for that. But yet this larger system is telling them that it is.
Yeah. So like we were talking about the senior who may not be playing their sport or doing their senior year that they thought they were going to do. They worked 10 years at their tennis game or their theater. They were going to be in the senior play, or they were going to be in that big orchestra event, and they were finally going to be first chair. They're not going to be doing those things probably, except for in Zoom meetings. And, so it's different and it's exhausting, and you've been looking forward to kind of reaping the rewards. So the senior stage of life, no matter what senior it is, you're not getting the rewards you'd been paying for to get. Not that way. So you're going to have to stay positive, post-mortem this a little bit, and try to find a way to turn it into what you'd like.
Right. So, I think it's understanding that change, difference is going to happen. Difference is happening. Change is occurring. We're kind of walking into uncertainty, but remembering too at the same time that that's not always a bad thing. It's just, you get to choose where you want to put your focus. So it's another decision that has to be made. And you make the best one for yourself, whatever that's going to be.
Yeah, honoring yourself and trying to stay in your lane, and as Georgia O'Keeffe said, let the critiques and the compliments about my show go down the same drain. And I'll make my own decisions about how good my show is and how bad it is. And I think when you look at the critiques and the compliments should go down the same drain. That's just other people's opinions and maybe interesting, but what's best for you.
Exactly.
Can't thank you enough for joining us here on Shrinks Chat. Please give us some feedback on Facebook or Instagram. Let us know your thoughts. If you're having a unique COVID experience, we want to hear from you. especially to our listeners overseas. We know we got some people in Ireland listening to the show, so
South
we'd love
Korea,
to know who you are.
New Zealand, France, Germany. Thank you for tuning in to us.
And check us out on our social media, Facebook,
YouTube
Instagram.
and Instagram. Have a good day.
Bye.
Bye.